Lake City, Utah. Welcome to the program. Happy Tuesday. It is the Sean O'Connell Show. His guy, Zakariah, filling in yesterday, today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and then all of next week as well. Hopefully you're growing to love me. An acquired taste. But we got a jam-packed 3-hour show just for your listening pleasure. We got some great guests. I got my guy Z-Rob, ones and twos, behind the glass back there. Help 5 minutes. Correct me if I'm wrong. Z-Rob on the shocking signing of Juan Soto, choosing the Mets over the Yankees.
Get traded to the Yankees. He got the Nationals, he went to the Padres, and then he got traded to the Yankees. And now, I think this is like his first ever.
He out and himself offers up play. The Yankees over that. So there might be a change of guard there. Got into that a little bit, but I got a little tidbit. Stuff is going to start coming out of the woodworks. It always does once the signing happens, but a very interesting thing that happened. So we'll get to that. BYU with a massive signing. The number one recruit in all of basketball headed to BYU. A little bit floored as I was preparing for the day and caught it on TV. He made his announcement on First Take, ESPN, and I was shocked. When you see like blue buds, like, North Carolina was in the running and picked BYU, that is big, massive for BYU. Draft. BYU has not had a draft pick in the first round, I believe, since Jimmer Fredette. I got to look it back up. I got it in my notes. So we'll get to that as well. Also, Monday Night Football, very interesting with the Simpson characters. 5 different broadcasts of the same game. I don't understand. I mean, I guess they just add all of the ratings together, but they have the Manning cast, they have the Simpsons cast, they have the regular cast, they have probably a Spanish broadcast. I mean, it's just tons of different ways you can get Monday Night Football. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then, of course, I want to go around the NFL. I like to do that. Some power rankings came out. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. The list of teams that are in the hunt or favored to win is starting to shrink. Teams are getting eliminated. People look to draft picks. So we'll get into the NFL as well. And for those watching on YouTube, check me out if you want to look at my ugly mug.
Even though you just had 2 headphones on.
Well, that's what I was just going to get to, Z-Rob, is that I noticed on the I'm watching myself. That's how much of a narcissist I am. No, you check on yourself just to make sure you don't have a bad angle or whatever. But yes, I had 2 pairs of headphones. So that's an embarrassing way to start the program. But again, the opening segment of the Sean O'Connell Show, which is brought to you by Alvy Armani. If you are having hair issues, gentlemen or ladies, maybe it's just thinning more than you'd like, let Alvy Armani help you out. Find them online at alvyarmani.com and tell them ESPN 700 and 92.1 sent you, after the show, because I saw some not so flattering angles, and I thought maybe I was developing a little bit of a bald spot up there, but if you're worried about it, go check out Alvy Armani. Like I said, I might have to drop in my 2-week stay. But the opening segment, as always, is going to be about the Utes. I want to get a soundbite at some point, Z-Rob, because I know you're going to produce me more than just yesterday and today. There's a great scene where Pesci has this thick Italian New York accent, and he's trying to say the Youths, like Youths, but he says it like the Utes, and the judge goes, the Utes? He goes, yeah, the Utes. He goes, what are Utes? And then he goes, the youths. So anyways, we got to get that audio. But we start with the Utes. And my question today is very simple. I don't know if Z-Rob's already put the poll up.
It's out there.
Okay. At ESPN 700 is where you can find it. I'll also retweet it. I'm at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. The Twitter handle is at ESPN 700. It's a very basic question. And the reason why I got to thinking about it is because of all of this off-season drama. I mean, it's been a rough go in general for the football year. It was tough. Utah's not used to losing the way that they did. So with that is going to come some change. In this case, it was mid-season. Offensive coordinator either steps down or was forced to step down. Who knows? Doesn't matter. And they brought in a new one. So now it's going to look different. And so I got to thinking, the Utah fan base, over the years, your identity has been defense. It's been defense, field position, clock management, winning the turnover battle. Your identity is known as rugged and tough. But do you like that? As a fan, do you like that? Or would you rather have a high-powered offense? Because that's what Utah is looking for. As I mentioned yesterday and have talked about a lot on these airwaves, the defense has very rarely been the problem. Part of the reason why I wanted Coach Witt back is he's a defensive guy. Part of the reason why Scally is the coach in waiting is that he is heading up the defense. The defense has not been the issue. The offense has, which is why Coach Ludd either, stepped down. So now you got new blood coming in. Somebody that is going to totally change the look of the offense with the new offensive coordinator, Jason Beck. You're going from a pro-style offense, which, again, was about clock management, running the ball mainly. Cam did air it out in the couple of good years that he had. Don't get me wrong, and that's where I'm going to give you some stats. I'm not a huge stat guy. I do like stats, and I like to use them to frame an argument. And, of course, you need to look at them. But if I'm sitting in my car like you are, or if I'm at work and I'm listening, I don't want to be hit over the head with a bunch of stats. But I will have some for you to give you an idea of just how much this program has been known for their defense. So my simple question to you people. By the way, I think I have a folder, Z-Rob, and I have Dave Chappelle, and it's you people. What the hell you mean, you people? So anytime I say you people, I want to drop that, but we'll do that as we go along. Anyways, what I want to ask Ute fans is, which do you prefer? This is a very simple poll. Which do you prefer for your team, your beloved Utah Utes? Would you rather them win in a shootout or a defensive battle? The options are A, shootout, B, defensive battle. Because I do wonder, as this team has risen through multiple different conferences, had bowl games and success, that's what you've been identified as, a defensive team. When people think Utah, they think defense, they think tough, they think special teams, they think winning the turnover battle. But over the past couple of years, enough is enough. You can only have so many losing seasons like that. So I wonder, do you want to continue? The defense isn't going anywhere, I don't think. But if your offense is markedly improved, then your defense is going to suffer a little bit just because they're going to be on the field more. If let's just say they have this high-powered offense coming in with Jason Beck's offense. They like touchdowns. That's what gets all the glory. And when you watch highlight films, they do show defensive plays, but it's probably 80-20. They're not going to show a lot of, tackles for loss or a pass deflection. They'll show interceptions. They'll show sacks. But I bet you if you broke down a highlight reel, it'd be about 80% offense, 20% defense is my guess. So most people like offense. But like I said, I think it's been embedded in the Utah Ute fan base that you come here, it's about defense. We're going to wear you out physically. So I wonder if it changes, if there are a ton of changes and it looks totally different with Beck at the helm, is that what you're looking for? Is that what you're hoping for? I think ultimately, and maybe we should have made this a third option, Z-Rob. Too late now, but you can always comment underneath the poll. But maybe we should have put a third option of a balanced team that is, good defensively, good offensively. I mean, obviously that's ideal. So maybe we shouldn't have done that because it probably would have won the poll, Z-Rob. I mean, everybody's going to pick, I want a great offense and a great defense. This is what I really want to know, though. Do you want the score to be 42-39 or do you want it to be 20-17?
Or like a big blowout or whatever.
Yeah.
Shootouts are always entertaining. Utah's had some close ones with USC, Oregon in the past, when Travis Wilson was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just like you want an entertaining game for sure.
Yeah.
Or not like a boring, like Super Bowl, what was it, 52? Rams and Patriots?
Yep.
That was that was probably the worst Super Bowl I've ever watched.
10-3 or something?
Yeah, 10-3.
I think I fell asleep. No joke. Super Bowl falling asleep. It was that bad. I also hate the Patriots, and I was like, come on, Rams. And Goff is my guy, a Cal guy. Couldn't get any points, man. I mean, credit to Bill Belichick and the Patriots, but you've whole life, friends that have been Ute fans their whole life, that is identity.
Yeah, no, it is 100%.
But making a huge, which is why to get everybody to calm down yesterday about the transfer portal and 3 quarterbacks going in there, it's because they're changing their offense. So it might look, it's going to go into a spread offense. One of the quarterbacks that they recruited is a guy that's known for running and passing. I don't think he's going to be, he's still in high play next year, but they're probably recruiting him to take over at some point. And it could just look a lot different is all I'm saying. And I just wonder if the Ute fans out there prefer that. Vote on the again, call or text 877-353-0700. So the numbers that I was talking about. I went back and I looked. This year, last year, you look at offense, 115th out of 132. Defense, 30 out of 132. Defense, not the problem. 2023, 100th out of 132. Defense, 15th out of 132. Now, 2022, now we're talking healthy Cam. Now, this is probably what Utah is trying to get more. The offense actually outranked the defense in 2022. Because, again, when your offense is going well, your defense is going to suffer a little bit because of it because they're on the field more. In 2022, the offense was 17th. Again, 100th in 2023, 115th in 2024. In 2022, they were 17th. And the defense did not suffer that much. It wasn't 30th or 15th. It was 27th. But that's the kind of balance, and that's obviously way more success.
And that's what won you 2 Pac-12 championships back to back. Defense lost like some key players to the draft, like Devin Lloyd, who went drafted to the Jaguars. You lost some key pieces for sure, but your defense still stepped up.
Yep.
So,
and look, I think that's what they're looking for. Is you can't be 115 out of 132. You just can't on offense. You're not going to win a lot of games, and this is why, we serenaded. I would like to think maybe Coach Witt tunes in from time to time. We serenaded Coach Witt with a little Mace welcome back yesterday. And that's part of the reason why I say welcome back and want to do a little dance, that he's coming back for another year. Because kudos to him for having as many losses as there were this year. A lot of them were 1-score games. And in 2023, won enough games to get to a bowl game. And that's without the most important position on the field. Well, they had a guy there. They had guys there, but not your first-string starter, which for most teams, you're going to have more years like you had this year than you are last year. And again, you could have had a bowl season this year if some of those one-score games went your way, most namely the BYU game. I don't mean to bring up bad memories.
Ouch.
But that one was rough.
Yeah, it was. And, like, quarterbacks, too, is like you got to be the conductor of the offense, you know? I say this every time with OC, and being the conductor of your offense, it's what gets you grooving and moving. Yep. You know, it generates points. It generates yards. It generates, you know, your defense stepping up and turning over the ball, you know? And that's the goal of what Utah wants to get is a conductor, you know? And Cam Rising was that conductor from 2020 to, like, 2022, 23, 24, a little bit, you know?
Yep.
And, like, him not being on the sideline some games because he's hurt and getting surgery and whatnot. But just having that presence of a conductor in your offense is what something is pretty valuable to a team.
Yeah. And so, look, I welcome it. As I said yesterday, as much as I like things to remain the same, when I think that there are good things in place, I don't like to change it. The offense, clearly, quarterback or no quarterback, it can't be that bad. I mean, those numbers were staggering to me. The teams below it, not good programs, obviously. 12 teams make the playoffs. You can't be 115th. You just can't. It's, you know, so something had to go. Something had to change. And, you know, kudos to Whittingham. I don't know how much pressure he got from above in terms of he didn't have much of a choice on whether or not he was going to have to make major changes to his offense. But either way, it's not like he said, okay, well, then I'm going to retire or I'm not going to do it. I always appreciate when somebody can change something that they've been pretty stuck in their ways on. But I'm sure the losing, you know, you start to look in the mirror, and in terms of what Kyle is, his specialty is defense. That doesn't need to change. The offense very clearly did. And so we'll see what happens. I'm excited, honestly. As many guys may leave for the portal, they're going to get – I haven't heard any portal news. I need to follow somebody on Twitter that gives, you know, minute-by-minute updates on who's definitely leaving or who's definitely coming or staying or whatever. But I haven't seen any major names. I mean, obviously, we went through all the guys that are leaving, but I haven't seen a lot of guys coming in. I've seen a lot of rumors, but nothing official. So, again, you can vote on that at ESPN 700, at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. Do you prefer winning in a shootout or a defensive battle? I bet you that this poll, I'm very curious, because you're either going to get it could be a toss-up, but if it goes one way or the other, you're either going to get a bunch of people that are tired of how stagnant the offense has been that are going to say, look, something's got to change. If we're getting a lot of L's, I mean, it was cute when we were getting W's, but with all the L's, then I prefer to win in a shootout. Or you're going to get a lot of people who it's been built into their DNA that this is a defensive program. And so they might go defense. But go ahead, vote on the poll. Again, you can text in 877-353-0700. But this was some major news for all the BYU people listening. The basketball program has not been very good over the past years. They've had some years here and there where they've made some noise, but this is huge. This is not only a 5-star prospect. This is the number one basketball recruit in the class of 2025. Let's see if I get this name right, Z-Rob. By the way, you're going to learn this about me. One of the things that I definitely need is things to be spelled out phonetically. Nobody messes up a name quite like me, but I think I got this one. AJ Dibanasta. I like that. I think I nailed that.
Pretty close.
What is it?
I don't remember how to pronounce it.
It's not that, though?
No, it's not that.
Dibanasta. I made him Italian. Anyway, I'm torn between these recruiting announcements. Part of me loves, you know, the glitz and the glamour, and I like touchdown celebrations. I'm very rarely the joy police or the killjoy or the stick in the mud. I usually encourage all that stuff. And I make fun of the people that are get off my lawn and don't like, they like Barry Sanders where he would score a touchdown and he would just hand the ball to the ref. No, I like T.O. pulling a Sharpie out of his sock and signing a football on Monday Night Football. I like all that stuff. But this is one that was a little over the top. He put out a video a couple days ago. Well, first of all, these things are televised, specifically in their hometown, but also in the towns of the colleges that he might go to. And usually it's the hats. They got like 5 hats in front of him, and then he moves to the left or the right, and you don't know where he's going to go, and then he picks one hat and puts it on. That's all right. I'm fine with that. This one was ridiculous. He had a guy jump out of a plane. He had either his dad or his coach or whatever next to him, and they're on like this football field, I think. And he goes, "Where are you going to go, AJ?" And he goes, "I don't know." And then this guy jumps out of a plane, lands on the field next to him, and walks up to him and goes, "Where are you going to go?" And then they just cut, the video goes to black. So you don't know. But he went on First Take, which is a pretty big platform, and he made his announcement, BYU. And I can't tell you how far stuff like that goes. For the football program this year, being in those early polls, recruits see that. And so, let's say sophomore, freshmen, or juniors in high school, they watch that. They believe me, this day and age, 2024, when you that he chose you over historically great North Carolina is a big deal. He said, quote, "A lot stood out on my visit. Obviously, Coach Young there to get to the NBA. Favorite player of all time, Kevin Durant, and he had high. My visit head all the way down to this guy, the analytics guy, all the way down to the dietitian, NBA staff, even the strength coach. If it's all NBA, I'm trying to get to the NBA. I think it's going to be the best development program for me." That is huge. Not only landing him, but guys that you can land down the line. So I know this is a Ute station, Z-Rob, but you got to tip your cap to BYU for landing the number 1 basketball recruit in all of the land.
Yeah, and on his visit too, he was attending the Kansas game, I think, as well, when he came on his visit. So it's a big pickup for BYU for sure. And
100%.
Yeah, we're probably going to hear about it more later with Jerem Jordan.
Yep.
For Red and Blue, but it's a big pickup. And we see like Cameron Boozer, the son of Carlos Boozer, who's playing for Duke, and then you see Darren Peterson, who's going to be playing for Kansas. It's like that's a big pickup for BYU for sure. And like they're not known as like a basketball school, like a whole basketball school, but I think they're going to start becoming one.
No,
sure.
my jaw dropped. I mean, I read a little bit more about it, and he was in a school here in Utah, one of those prep schools. He was at a prep school in California, Northern California, over by Napa, Wine County, and then he went to a prep school in Utah. So that made a little bit more sense. But yeah, that's huge for BYU. All right, our show today and every day is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Les Schwab has the tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever you drive. Stop by your local Les Schwab today, and their professionals will get the job right the first time. Coming up next, Gordy Chiesa. You know him well. He is a treasure. That's what OC called him, and I think that's a perfect term for him. We're going to talk Jazz, and then we're going to talk NBA. And, of course, Gordy does not do a segment on these airwaves without giving us a list. So you're going to want to stick around for that. Don't forget, vote on the polls. I'll update it as the show goes along. For you Ute fans out there, do you prefer winning in a shootout or a defensive battle? Vote at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. Station handle is at ESPN 700. Gordy, coming up next, you're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in. Coming up at 11:45, a little thing I like to call Fun in the 40s. Fifth, we'll go around the wacky world of sports, and I will pay off that tease of just what might have factored into Juan Soto choosing the Mets over the Yankees. I'm hoping that this is not the actual reason, but it was reported that it played a part. So I'll tell you that and much, much more as we go around the wacky world of sports. Don't forget to go vote on the poll. Ute fans, do you prefer winning in a shootout or a defensive battle, as your offense is going to look drastically different than it has over the years? At ESPN 700, and I'm going to retweet it at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. You can always text in 877-353-0700. But right now, let's talk some round ball, shall we? And there's nobody I'd rather talk basketball with than the one, the only, Gordy Chiesa. Longtime coach, made it to the finals. He's seen everything from every level, college, NBA. He has forgotten more basketball than I will ever know. Gordy, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Zach, I am doing fine. Thank you.
So let's start with the Jazz, and then we'll go around the NBA a little bit. I had as well as anybody, you don't usually call a timeout after a made basket. It's usually when the other team makes a basket and you're trying to, kind of kill the hot streak that the other team is on. And he's alluding to the fact that maybe it would be so if the Jazz lost as many games as possible and possibly got Cooper Flagg. So, accusation, is there any chance that I don't want you to throw any speculation out there either, but what he would say?
No, I think absolutely he's somewhat correct. The Jazz right now are playing for the future, and so that they're trying to develop their talent level, but also increase it. And so with a younger team, they decided at that moment not to call a timeout and see what the young guys could do, and that was part of I'm sure part of the reason why. So usually speaking, is that what you want to do is use your timeouts selectively, but the Jazz decide at that moment not to, as far as let the young guys play through their errors. And long term, it will help them. Short term, probably not.
Well, I'm going to play it for you, Gordy, and if you have anything to add after you hear it, you can. If not, we can move on. But here is George Sedano on with me yesterday.
Not much, to be honest with you. I've watched them a couple of times. And look, I do his vision as an architect. I actually very much believe in Will Hardy as a head coach. But it seems to me, and I know players don't tank, but organizations do. And I know, you can argue all you want, and I'm sure they would push back on it, but it seems fairly obvious to me the direction that they're heading in. And there are plenty of people out there that believe Cooper Flagg is a generational type talent, maybe not of the likes of Wemby, but certainly someone who is NBA ready and in some people's minds has been NBA ready for a while already, even in high school. So I do think that having the ability to get a player like that, or putting your, buying as many lottery tickets, I guess, as you can, because of the way the lottery is now structured in the NBA. It's not a guarantee that the worst team is going to have the best percentage. But I do think that changes your franchise. I don't think there's any doubt about that if you can get a Cooper Flagg. So, and nothing to me was more telling of that than that Laker game the other night, where Will Hardy all of a sudden called a timeout after Colin Sexton hit a shot, or as was easily going to hit a shot. It looked like it just felt like, and I know, he had his own position on it and blames himself. I just, I don't know if I believe in that kind of coincidence. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too much of a skeptic in that scenario.
Yeah.
Well, I do think the draft, though, is important right now. So in Jazz basketball, they're taking, I call it a gap year, where they're developing the talent, but also for the future. And this year, Zach, this year there's really 4 players in the draft that are real. You can make a discussion besides Cooper Flagg that could be number 1. And they are Ace Bailey from Rutgers, Dylan Harper from Rutgers, and Diego Demons, ironically, from BYU. So all four of those guys, you can make a strong narrative that they'll be number one. So in Jazz basketball, it's a long-term play. And so they're playing for the future and trying to develop right now. It's a slippery slope. It's a thin needle to try to thread, and that's what the Jazz decided to do. And if you're a Jazz fan, the future should be bright. In the meantime, it's painful, and that's the dilemma right now. As if you're a fan, but this is the vision that they have, and they're going to go forward with it.
One more Jazz question for you, Gordy, and then we'll go around the NBA. I'm pretty much going to ask you this question every time I have you on, but as the season progresses, your answer might change. But just give me a couple of guys that you've seen so far that Jazz fans should be excited about them holding on to and being a part of the future, and then other guys that are playing well that might possibly be moved at the trade deadline.
Okay, the future right now is definitely guys like Cody Williams is in the G League, who's done a good job for them. Isaiah Collier is a very good young player. Keontae George is a very good young player. Taylor Hendricks, who got hurt, unfortunately, is a young talent. So, and then Filipowski, which is a bonus, the 32nd pick of the draft. So all five of those guys are in play. Walker Kessler is having an outstanding year, and he could be number 6. So those are the 6 guys that are absolutely the Jazz are going to go forward with their team. Now, Keontae George is a huge factor because he's one of the guys, Zach, that is playing through his mistakes. So some of his mental errors or turnovers, usually they're self-inflicted. The Jazz have made the decision that he's their guy, and they're going to keep playing him until he gets it as far as more maturity, as far as the court. In Jazz basketball, just quickly, unfortunately, they lead the NBA in most turnovers committed at 17.3, ranked number 30. Yeah, 30. And so that's alarming. And so with a young team, usually speaking, Zach, most young players play offense too fast and defense too slow. And so the Jazz and the Wizards and all the other teams, the Raptors and the Trailblazers and the Hornets, just generally speaking, those teams are usually offensive-minded, but they can't finish because of their turnovers or their erratic defensive play.
Speaking with Gordy Chiesa right here on the Sean O'Connell Show, Zakariah filling in, ESPN 700. All right, Gordy, let's go around the NBA. Trade rumors are starting to pop up. We are deep enough into the NBA. You know, a lot of people will say they start watching the NBA when it's Christmas time. Now, I know you and I watch it long before that. But trade rumors are starting to pop around because we are enough into the NBA. This one I found to be kind of intriguing, and first of all, I like and respect this guy's basketball knowledge. It's Michael Wilbon from ESPN, and I've seen him say it multiple times, both on his PTI show, on NBA Countdown. Anytime they have him on an NBA program, I've heard him mention this. He wants LeBron to go to the Warriors. You think that would be possible, and do you think that would be a good fit?
No, and the reason why is that, again, the Warriors have a short-term process because of the brilliance of Steph Curry. And so the question right now is, for the Warriors ownership level, do they trade all their young assets to get LeBron at age 40 to win a championship this year or possibly next? And so that's a discussion right now. Again, LeBron's playing absolutely sensational. We've never seen a guy play this long at this high level. I had the privilege to coach John Stockton and Karl Malone, and those guys are 8, 39, and 40. They were still excellent players, but still in the top players in the NBA. Give up Kuminga. Guys like that. I don't want to starting. I don't want to give up Andrew. Even though LeBron's better than those guys, their age factor of being so young and talented. Kuminga, now it's now, and he probably thinks his people, meaning Clutch Sports, that the Lakers, even they love being there for 6 years so far, they don't have enough to get by.
Man, yeah, that's tough.
Short term, see again, every franchise,
Mm-hmm.
whether the NFL or the who are your star players, what's their age group, what is their skill set, how much are you willing to pay dramatically? We call it the second apron now, the luxury tax. See, so there's so many variables. So, for example, for the Warriors' point of view, just say the Warriors just did it, for example. They're staring at LeBron's contract this year is $48.7 million. Next year is a player option, meaning LeBron's option, at $52.6 million. And so you're talking minimum $52.6 million, plus he's going to say, give me another year because I think I can still play at a high level, which then puts the Warriors over the second apron dramatically. Like when I say dramatically, we're talking like $400 million as far as taxes, as far as paying back to the NBA. And so these are all factors that you've got to, Michael Wilbon, and which I understand when they say about it, there's so many other factors that are involved in decision making.
Yeah,
I wish it was that easy, but it's not.
Yeah, I know. And it's easy to be a GM when you're not looking at all of the, like you said, the aprons and the tax penalties. I mean, I think it's a huge conundrum, and it's the reason why I asked, because I think a lot of Warriors fans feel like, they're sort of wasting the remaining years that Steph has playing at an elite level. All right. Well, Gordy, it would not be a interview with you, Gordy, unless we did a list. So what do you got for us today, Gordy?
The other day, Chris Paul, we all love and respect. He's trending up. So the list today is the NBA regular season career assist leaders. So the top 10 all-time NBA assist leaders, quickly. An assist makes three people happy, Zach. One, the head coach.
All right, I like that.
He's the top 10 all-time NBA distributors. Number 10, Isaiah Thomas, 9,061. Number 9, Russell Westbrook, 9,608. Number 8, Oscar Robinson, 9,887. Number 7, Magic Johnson, 10,141, and he averaged 11.2 assists per game. Number 6, Mark Jackson, 10,334. Number 5, Steve Nash, 10,335. Number 4, LeBron James, 4th all-time, 10,531. Number 3, Jason Kidd, 12,091. Number 2, Chris Paul, 12,099. And the number one leader of all time in assists, I had the privilege of coaching for 16 years, John Stockton, with 15,806, which comes to 10.5 assist per game. So Magic and John Stockton are the only two players in the history of the game to average over double-digit assists per game.
Wow.
So the question always is, Zach, I'm asking this question often, is will John's record ever be broken? And even though Chris Paul, this is his 20th season, and he's trying to catch it, John is still over 3,000 assists more than Chris Paul. So which comes to the last question, Zach, I'm going to ask you, is that what are some other records in sports by the individual that probably will never be broken? Probably. And I had to think about baseball because we know it's the ultimate individual sport. So here's 3, and think about what your list might be. Here's 3 baseball statistics but never be broken. 1, Pete Rose's career hit record of 4,256 hits for his career. Number 2, 1941, Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. And number 3, also 1941. Ted Williams was the last player in baseball ever to bat 400. He batted 406. And then, Zach, I read about this for decades. They asked him, he's playing a doubleheader back in 1941. Do you want to sit the games to be able to bat over 400? He said, absolutely not. He goes for the doubleheader, 6 for 8.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that pops to my mind is always batting 400. The hit streak, haven't a couple of guys gotten semi-close to 56?
Yeah, one time, someone got 44 one time. But my mind's remiss who was. But one player got 44. But, Zach, think about it, 56 straight games of getting a hit.
Yeah.
You might smack that ball unbelievable, but sometimes the fielders are right in front of it.
Yep.
It's hard to do, 56 straight games.
Especially with the shift. I mean, they've regulated it a little bit, but you'll see it. I remember several times in the playoffs, a guy just hits an absolute laser up the middle, and there's the shortstop, right, 15 feet over from where he's supposed to be. I personally hate the shift. If you hit a ball in the gap where a player's not supposed to be, that should be a hit. That always aggravates me. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, I could see of those three, because the first one that always pops in my head is who got closest to 400? Did Tony Gwynn get close? I know one time he was on pace for it, and then I think the season got canceled because of a strike. But
I think he batted 387 that year.
Yeah, and that was Tony Gwynn, who was unbelievable. So, yeah, I don't think anybody's getting to 400, especially now where, players are almost encouraged to either strike out or hit a home run. I mean, obviously there are guys that hit for a high average, but I can't see 400 getting caught ever. The hits probably not either. I could see somebody getting the hit streak. I could see that. You said the closest was 48 and it's 56?
I think it was 44, I think.
44.
But I could be wrong. And listen, the listeners right now, please text or email Zach and give your list of what you think it is, and especially about baseball. See, in football, like Tom Brady, it's a team sport. So Brady's Super Bowl brilliance, it also might not be broken, but it's more of a team sport, meaning football.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. All right, well, I'll have the listeners text in, and I'll give you the best ones next time I interview you, Gordy. Always appreciate your time. Have a wonderful Tuesday, sir.
Thanks. Peace out. Thank you. Bye now.
There you go. Peace out. His signature goodbye. Gordy Chiesa. Love talking hoop with that guy. He's like an encyclopedia of basketball. Fun stuff. All right, coming up next, and yeah, do that for him. If he made a request, I've got to follow through with that. So he wants you to text in, what are some unbreakable records in any sport? I think Wayne Gretzky, all-time points leader, is probably never going to get caught between goals and assists. So that would be one that I would say. But what say you? You can text that in, 877-353-0700, 877-353-0700. What are some unbreakable records? All right, coming up next, it's time for the fifth. Fun in the 40s. What could have led Juan Soto to sign with the Mets and not the Yankees? That and more coming up next. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Excellent song. I'm still a kid when it comes to having speakers in my car. I got two 12s in my ride, so this is one of those songs that hits really hard in that. Great song. Lil Wayne, one of the best. Welcome on back to the program. It is the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here on ESPN 700. Coming up at the top of the hour, it's the Big 12 at noon. We got a couple of different guests for you. We're going to talk some BYU football, but also got to talk about that number one recruit with Jerem Jordan. He will join us. And then at about 12:15, 12:20, something like that, we will talk with Shahan Jariah, CBS National College Football writer. So we'll talk some Utes. We'll talk some college football playoff. We will go all around the world of college sports and specifically the Big 12 for the Big 12 at noon. But right now it's time for the fifth, Fun in the 40s. And I teased it at the top of the show only because it couldn't have been this, right? It could not have been this. So a $765 million contract, and I know baseball's not king, but this is a big enough story. Not only $765 million, but also the fact that Juan Soto chose the Mets over the Yankees. Now listen to this little tidbit on why. According to a report from New York Post's John Heyman, Soto grew discouraged with the Yankees' unwillingness to provide him with a luxury suite for his family at Yankee Stadium. Instead, the Yankees insisted that Soto pay for the suite himself at a discounted rate. Meanwhile, the Mets were willing to give Soto his suite at Citi Field. Since the Yankees had made Derek Jeter and Aaron Judge pay for their suites, they didn't want to set a different precedent with Soto. Via the Post, the Yankees shouldn't be faulted for bidding a whopping $760 million, but they wouldn't budge on the suite. The Yankees felt they couldn't give a suite to Soto when Judge paid for his suite. Even Derek Jeter paid. They were willing to discount a suite but not alter their precedent. And then he goes on to say, when you think about it, that does make some sense, especially when you're looking at the cost of that request. Suites at Yankee Stadium can go for upwards of $25,000 for a single game. And while the Yankees did offer Soto a discounted rate, you're looking at around $20 million over the 16 years on top of that $760 million deal. But Mets owner Steve Cohen, who I mentioned yesterday, is worth $16 billion. I believe that's $4 billion more than the next closest owner and about 4 times more than the Yankees owner. Anyways, Mets owner Steve Cohen didn't care about the cost effectiveness here. He wanted Soto and was going to do whatever it took. I'm not saying $20 million is not a lot of money, which is what it would have been total for a suite. But I find it hard to believe that that's the reason why Soto chose the Mets over the Yankees. It can't be that big of a deal when you have that much money to just pay for, again, discounted. I don't know how much cheaper it would have been and what that would have meant over the duration of the contract. And obviously that's a nice perk. But it's not like he was saying his family couldn't go to the games or he couldn't get a suite. He just couldn't get it for free, and I kind of understand that. Derek Jeter's probably, well, not the most famous Yankee of all time because they have so many. DiMaggio, Garrick, Ruth. But in terms of relatively recently, Jeter's probably the most famous Yankee. And they made him pay. And Judge is the current most famous Yankee, and they made him pay. So I kind of see the Yankees side. I don't know if the Yankees knew that that was the specific reason, but that would be pretty ridiculous. That's the report. He grew, and the Mets said, "We ain't tripping. Cohen ain't." You think Cohen's tripping off of giving? I think not. But I found that to be and kind of petty if that really had sort of influence on why he chose the Mets over the Yankees. All right, coming up of the hour one in the books, 2 more to go. It is time for the Big 12 at noon. Got a couple of great guests for you. And we'll talk some Utah football, but BYU news, that and much, much more coming up at the top of the hour. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here, ESPN. Wait for it. Wait for it. There we go. Welcome on back to the program. That's how you start hour number 2. Welcome to the PM portion of your day. It is the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here on ESPN 700. We got a good couple of hours for you. Right now, it is time for the Big 12 at noon, brought to you by Mountain Land Supply. Visit them at mountainlandsupply.com. And we led the show off, as we always do, with a Utes angle. And I had got to thinking a little bit last night, a little bit this morning, getting ready for the show. And with all the talk of the new offensive coordinator coming in, that the offense is going to look, whether it's good or bad, it's going to look different. You're going to be, the Utes are going to be running a completely different style offense come next year. And so if it does become, which I think Ute fans are hoping for, a high-powered offense, it got me to thinking, a program that's known so much for their defense, how do you prefer to win? So the simple poll question for you at ESPN 700, and I'm at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports, do you prefer winning in a shootout or a defensive battle? So you can go ahead and vote on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it. Or if you don't have that, some people don't have it, you can text in 877-353-0700 and let me know which of the two you prefer and why, if you're going to text, or you can reply on Twitter. But the text line, the Dish Pros text line is 877-353-0700. But right now, for the Big 12 at noon, we have a guest, Shahan Sajara. I said that so wrong. Sajay. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, he's coming up next. That was actually my tease. Shahan, and I will get the name right, is coming up next. But right now, my bad, we have Jarom Jordan, BYU Sports Nation host on BYU TV. Follow him on Twitter at Jarom Jordan. Jarom, forgive me here. I'm starting off the hour a little rocky. How you doing, sir?
You can call me Sean. You can call me Zach. You can call me anybody as long as AJ DeBonsa coming to BYU.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. But puffing out your chest, Jarom. I understand. Not only a 5-star recruit, Jarom, but I was going to start football and I was going to get to your precious basketball. Big landing. I saw that on first. I was like, BYU, huh? I was like, I heard North Carolina, didn't bat an eye. Heard, Kansas, didn't bat an eye. And then I heard BYU, not only that they were in the running, but that was his choice. So just how pumped up are you, Jarom? I can tell you are, because you didn't even let me get to football. You just led right in with the gloating.
As a fellow host of a show, I know how to blow it up, I guess, so my bad. But, yeah, it's one of the biggest days in BYU sports history in terms of you're getting a guy that's projected to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft in 26. And we've talked to several people that said if he was in this draft, he would go over Cooper Flagg at number 1. So it's pretty wild that in this era you can combine a great coach who has NBA experience and has loaded his staff with not only coaches, but we're talking the strength and conditioning guy, the nutritionist, the mental strength guy, the video guy. They are all NBA experienced people. It's Pro-Vo, capital P-R-O, and AJ DeBonsa coming here next year, combined with competitive NIL, great fit, and BYU has landed its greatest recruit in any sport ever today on First Take, which is amazing that Screamin' A. Smith had to talk about Brigham Young University.
Pretty good impersonation. Yeah, I actually read that quote. I touched on it a little bit in the opening segment, and to your point, he mentioned that. He literally said, quote, my ultimate goal is to get to the NBA on my visit, head coach, all the way down to the analytics guy, all the way down to the dietitian is all NBA staff, even the strength coach. If it's all NBA, I'm trying to get to the NBA, and I think it's going to be the best development program for me. So to your point, he's obviously all these kids, their dream is to get to the NBA, but he pointed out everything that you just said. The staff up and down was NBA caliber and quality, and that was a big reason of what drew him there, Jarom.
And it's wild because it's true. And Kevin Young and the administration and everybody has invested in men's basketball for a long time, but it's been an even higher level now because you got the right coach and the right staff and the right NIL and whatnot. And there's been a lot of people that are like, well, BYU was just the highest bidder. We're being told he had higher offers elsewhere. Obviously, you got to be competitive in that space, but you have a guy who coached with the Sixers and the Suns as an assistant coach. He was the highest paid assistant in the NBA, Zach. At $2 million a year, he coached Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and he's coached 31 lottery picks in his time in the NBA. He could have taken the Nets job had he wanted. He could be the Nets coach right now. Instead, he wanted to have a college lifestyle, kind of gear down a little bit, but he knows what it's about. It's not philosophical, as he said. In his opening press conference, he said, I want BYU to be the best. I've been there. I've lived that. BYU's going to be the best. We're going to make this the best place for young men to come and develop for the NBA. And at first I was like, wow, that is ambitious. But he is actually doing it with Yegor Demin, who's a projected top 10 pick. Kenan Ketchings is a top 30 guy on the roster right now. Now you get A.J. DeBonsa, who's been compared to Tracy McGrady, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and LeBron James out of college. This is unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, that's just crazy. BYU has not had an NBA draft pick since Jimmer Fredette, and that didn't go well. He went number 10 overall in 2011. And so that's a long time, and this is a big deal. Again, not just a five-star recruit, numero uno, projected to go number 1 in the draft. And I often talk about this, Jerem, because people do mention it, but I don't feel like there's enough emphasis put on it. This is not just landing this guy, which is obviously huge. These kids nowadays, it's not like back in the day when you had to read it in the newspaper or you'd find out, only if you maybe caught it on. There's so much access. They do all these documentaries on these prospects, like you on Netflix and all these different places that they know everything. So I was saying, kids that are freshmen in high school or sophomores in high school or juniors in high school are looking at that and going, he went to BYU? So it increases your chances of getting more prospects down the line when you have your name up there like that.
100%. BYU's now, has 2 on the roster and a third coming next year that are projected NBA guys. They got the number 31 guy, a center out of Las Vegas, Xavier Stanton as well. And so 5 of the top 8 recruits in 24/7 Sports composite scores have come in the Kevin Young era. The Kevin Young era is 7 months old. I mean, this is unbelievable what he's doing, and the buy-in from everybody at every level is incredible. I'd like to personally thank Jack Golke of Oakland for making 10 threes to beat Kentucky and start that coaching chain. I'd like to thank Texas and Oklahoma for leaving, give BYU a chance to get to the Big 12. All of these so that BYU could enter what they hope is a new golden era of Cougar athletics.
Look at you, Jerem. You act like you just won an Oscar. You forgot to thank God there.
I did today. Cougar Nation rejoices. Roger Reed made a big deal out of not getting the number 1 pick in the 90s. Today, we closed that loop.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You forgot to thank God as part of your acceptance speech. But yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of talk of BYU football as we make the transition to talk some football. But, Ryan Smith, owner of pretty much everything, a lot of talk about how he's going to help the BYU football program. And I've heard OC on his program joke about, maybe you should give, the basketball program a little bit of love too. But yeah, I mean, I expected to see some flashes with the football program, not the basketball program. I'm telling you, Jerem, when I saw it, my mouth dropped when I saw it on First Take. I happened to have it on, before I left to come here to the studios. And I was just shocked when I heard BYU. Obviously, my ears perked up doing radio here in Utah. But I mean, yeah, that's a big pull. And I guess congratulations, sir. Okay, congratulations. But let's move on to football. Obviously, BYU in a 4-way tie in the Big 12 didn't end up getting into the championship game. But again, that was another year for the football program where they had a couple of the instances where when they put the playoff bracket out, and we can talk some college football playoff if you want, but there was a couple of times where they were in, they do the whole selection committee thing and they make a whole orchestra out of it and then they announce it. But BYU was up there for a couple of weeks. And again, recruits are going to see that. So just talk about the year. Give me a little reflection. I haven't talked to you since it ended. Just talk about the year that they had and how big that is for recruiting moving forward.
Yeah, fantastic season when the dust settles, right? Certainly at 9-0 and seeing your name on the 3 seed, it's easy to be very disappointed with how it ended going 1-2. Certainly there was an opportunity there for BYU to be in the playoff. And if they had finish the regular season a little stronger. You lose at home by 4 to Kansas State, and then you lose a close one at Arizona State, who's proven to be a very good team. If you win one of those two, you're in the Big 12 title game, and you got 60 minutes for a chance there, perhaps. So, yeah, certainly a bummer. I think at 9-0, BYU probably was pretty clutch to get to 9-0. They very easily could have been 7-2 or 6-3, but they made some great plays, and then unfortunately didn't make some in the last 2 out of 3. But all things considered, amazing second year in the Big 12. It's hard to come in and win. A lot of teams in the state are figuring that out, right? And then BYU at 10-2 is playing in probably the best bowl situation outside of the playoff. Colorado, awesome. They've bought in to the game, meaning Shedeur and Travis are going to play, which surprises me quite a bit. So with that in mind, hey, I think this is a pretty fun matchup in San Antonio for a BYU team against Colorado. Yes, it's a Big 12 matchup because of contracts with the Pac-12 and blah, blah, blah. But Prime versus Kalani and Shedeur and Travis is going to win the Heisman. And, I mean, it's a pretty cool setup, all things considered. Obviously disappointed with the playoff. You beat Kansas at home. You got a great shot to be in there. But, let's see if BYU can't win an 11th game and finish pretty strong on a great second year in the Big 12.
It's the Big 12 at noon. Talking some BYU football and a little basketball. He's getting his gloat on with Jerem Jordan right here. ESPN 700, the Sean O'Connell Show. Zachariah filling in. There was also some news with BYU football with head coach Kalani Sitake getting extended. He was already under contract till I believe 2027 or something. So how much further did this thing go? Because I didn't see any length of the contract. I just saw it just said extended into the future.
Yeah, it said long term. You would think into at least the early 2030s. And so, yeah, certainly in a pretty comfortable spot.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a coach like Kalani, one that can win successfully on the field. BYU's won 10-plus in 3 of the last 5. And now in the Big 12, he's proven it's not just a COVID thing. It's a strong independent schedule thing, and it's a Big 12 thing. So there's kind of 3 different types there. He can put guys in the NFL. BYU's last 3 left tackles have been in the NFL. They have 2 of the last 3 starting quarterbacks are in the NFL in some capacity. They're putting guys in the league. Puka Nacua, Fred Warner. These are on his watch, right? Taysom Hill at the end of his career. And running backs, skill positions. It's impressive because you have to have a guy that he's not only a card-carrying member of the church, but he's also into what's important for BYU off the field, and it's off-the-field missions, which are bigger than football, right? So to find that guy, to have that guy is super important and awesome. And right now, the coaching tree and influence from BYU is pretty significant. It's cool to see, obviously, former Cougar Kyle Whittingham, former BYU head coach Bronco Mendenhall up at Utah State, former Cougar quarterback Steve Sarkisian on a playoff team in Texas, Andy Reid in the NFL doing great things. Mike Holmgren is a Hall of Fame finalist this year. Perhaps he gets in as a former quarterback coach at BYU in the early 80s. So it's pretty cool to see BYU's influence there, LaVell Edwards' influence, and Kalani's the guy for the foreseeable future. He absolutely deserves it.
Yeah, 100%. Talk about job security. All right, I got to sneak in a Ute question here. What is your reaction to the new offensive coordinator for the Utes, Jason Beck? I know he has a little history with BYU.
Absolutely. Love him as a person, as a friend. Super excited for him. And honestly, as a guy who covers BYU, I'm now worried about Utah more than I was. Because what's been the issue with Utah? If they don't have an offense, it's trouble, right? That's anybody. But that defense is always really good, top 20. If there's an offense, and he has paid his dues over time, right? As a QB coach, finally got the OC jobs at Syracuse in New Mexico, and now he has a chance, right, with a really good defense. The question's always kind of been like, how expansive can he be? How aggressive can he be? Because Kyle's mantra's been defense and special teams, and then let's win with enough offense, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's as a guy who covers BYU, it's like, hey, Utah gets an offense. That's a dangerous team to deal with. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be very, I guess the word would be odd to watch a Coach Witt team have a squad that offensively is running a spread offense, and it might be high octane, but you have back-to-back years where your offense is that bad. That's just what's going to happen. All right, follow him on Twitter. Always good stuff from Jerome Jordan. He's at Jerome Jordan on Twitter. He's the BYU Sports Nation host and also on BYU TV. Always love talking shop with you, Jerome. Jerem, I'm sorry.
Hey, Zach,
Have a good one.
I've heard every version of that. It doesn't matter, my dog. It's all good, Zach.
I appreciate it. Jerem Jordan. Man, I swear, if people played a drinking game, of course, drinking water, every time I messed up a name, they would be very hydrated. Z-Rob. I am the name assassinator. You know? Maybe it's part of my charm. That's the way that I like to look at it. All right. Is he ready? Is Shahan ready? Oh, okay. Oh, I see it on the rundown. Well, we are going to effort. As we effort him, I'm going to practice his name. Shahan Zayaraja. Zayaraja. I'll have him correct me. I'm terrible at names. People mess up my name all the time. I don't get mad. My last name is Slenderbroek, which is Dutch, and I've heard a lot of different versions of that. Slenderbroek, or no, Slenderbroek, Slender. They always add a R. Names are tough sometimes. You know what I mean? So you got to write them out phonetically. But we'll talk some. He's a CBS national college football writer, so we can go all around the map in terms of that. So I'll pick his brain on what Utah is going to look like next year as well. Again, it's going to be a little bit of a shock. I don't know, maybe it's only the diehard fans that really pay attention to coordinator changes. Usually it's the head coach that gets the headlines. Well, it's usually the players that get the headlines. And then after that, the head coach. The coordinators, I would say the majority of fans are aware of who the offensive and defensive coordinator are, but they don't get major headlines. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a little bit of a shock for a normal Utah fan to watch what they're going to put out on the field offensively. First of all, it's just going to be different, just the actual scheme, as we've talked about, going from a pro-style offense to a spread offense. So it's going to look different on the field, but also just the way the offense moves and the way it operates, it's going to be a lot different than what you've seen in years past. So I also want to talk to him about the college football playoff. We went over it a little bit yesterday. The matchups, SMU getting in was a little bit of a surprise. They go to Penn State. Indiana only loss was an ugly loss. Other than that, they've looked good. But their loss against Ohio State was pretty ugly. And they are at number 7 Notre Dame, who I think is, every year I find them to be overrated. Because I explained it yesterday that, growing up before every single game was on TV, Notre Dame was like the only game on TV. They had a deal with NBC, I believe. So there's a lot of Notre Dame fans all around the United States, in the world really, because they were the only game that you could watch. So growing up, people loved them. I think they're overrated. So, well, we'll get into that and a lot more I'm just going to go with Shahan. You need to tell me how to say your last name properly, Shahan, because I don't want to butcher it again.
It's
Jayaraja.
Got it.
Okay, got it. He is a CBS national college football writer. Follow him on Twitter. His name, I'm just going to spell it out, ShehanJeyarajah. Follow him for all your college football news and knowledge. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. So let's start with, because I've been talking about it a lot, the new offensive coordinator for the Utah Utes. I've been saying that the Utah offense is going to look a lot different for Utah fans than it's looked like over the years. But what do you know about new offensive coordinator Jason Beck? And are you surprised that Kyle Whittingham is kind of diverting from what he's been doing for so long, which is usually focusing on the defense and just scoring enough points to win?
Yeah, look, I think that after the past couple of years, and sure, 2024 was uniquely difficult, but I think also the 2023 season, it's time to evolve. It's time to move up. I think it's a huge credit to Kyle Whittingham that one, of course, he did decide to go a little out of the family and to bring in, of course, Jason Beck over from New Mexico. I think the other piece of this, too, though, is that this is an offense that I think has the ability, especially at the power conference level, to be diverse. I don't think that it's necessarily only limited to being super explosive, super fast. I think that this is one that will have different gears when it does get to Utah. And by the way, I mean, when you look at Jason Beck, you're talking about a coach who, of course, did play at BYU, came through that system, who did coach quarterbacks at Weber State a while back. So this feels like a really nice fit. It doesn't hurt, I would argue, that of course, when you talk about Jason Beck, he's a coach who just worked for Bronco Mendenhall, who I think is one of the more underrated coaches in college football. So I really like this fit, and I think that he will ultimately fit what Kyle Whittingham wants his program to be as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of change. I'm sure you saw, but Utah had, not to go LeBron on you, but not one, not two, but three quarterbacks enter the portal. But that makes sense, right? If you're totally changing your offense from a pro-style offense to a spread offense, and the quarterbacks that you had have been grooming and their skill set is that of a pro-style offense, it makes sense that they're all going to leave and you're going to bring in guys that makes more sense for the new offense, correct?
Absolutely. And I think the other piece that you have to add to this is, like, think about the season that so many of these guys just went through. Like, I understand why everybody involved kind of wants a fresh start. And look, I mean, Andy Ludwig was considered one of the great offensive minds in college football over the past couple of years. And so, like, a lot of these guys came specifically to play for that coaching staff. So I think that when you have such a reset, and also, I mean, if you're Isaac Wilson, like, you were thrown to the wolves in so many ways, in a way that you probably weren't ready for. And obviously, I think that it makes sense why he wants a fresh start as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the college football playoff. Any surprises when the committee was done and they laid out the bracket? Were you surprised by anything? The biggest one for me, I'll go first, I guess, is that Alabama did not get in. I'm glad that they did not, but typically they want to get big draws into the tournament. So I figured that they were going to sneak them in there. But were there any surprises for you?
Well, I think from my perspective, and this may be publicly a little bit of an unpopular opinion, I think they mostly got it right. Like, I think that when you look at the way that this system works, the way that the sport is structured, like, I think that this was the correct result of all of it. And now, you know, again, like you mentioned, the Alabama versus SMU discussion, I think, really kind of had people up in arms. To me, like, the bigger surprise was I thought that SMU had a chance to stay ahead of Indiana. Like, I think that this became such an SMU versus Alabama discussion, and Indiana kind of got left out of it a little bit. But, like, I think that, again, you know, we kind of heard that they weren't going to completely punish you for losing a conference championship game, and SMU lost theirs on a 56-yard field goal at the buzzer. So I think, again, like, you know, you're talking about a team that through 12 games had 2 fewer losses than Alabama. And again, I know that people are kind of trying to spread this idea that this proves that the committee doesn't care about strength of schedule. If you lose 2 more games in the same amount of games, like, you can't just say we played a hard schedule and we lost the game. Like, you have to win the game. That's the point of strength of schedule. It was valued clearly because Alabama, as a 3-loss team, was the first team out ahead of multiple 2-loss teams. It was true because Georgia, as a 2-loss team, was the number 2 overall ranked team over teams that had fewer losses than them. So, to me, this was the clear and obvious result. I do think the one thing that also was a slight surprise to me was I thought that Notre Dame had a better chance to be 5 or 6. I thought that, when you look at the way that they've recovered since that Week 2 loss to Northern Illinois, I mean, they have been a buzzsaw, winning 10 straight games. I thought that especially with a Texas loss, they'd have a chance to move up potentially, but they say at number 7 in the seeding. And, you know, again, I don't think that that's a travesty by any means.
Yeah, you led me to my next question because that's what great guests do, and you touched on it a little bit, but do you think the precedent has been set now? Because there was some there's been drama, and I think this is exactly what the NCAA wanted, was drama throughout the year. But even coaches, I joked about Lane Kiffin writing an essay, and you had the Arizona State coach saying, you know, doing his own little politicking or whatever. But you did have at one point in the season, I remember, I forget who the coach was, but they said something along the lines of, well, then I'm going to try to not get into the conference title game because if I'm going to get punished for losing, then I might as well not be in it. Do you think the precedent is set now that you're not going to get punished for losing the game? Because if that SMU Clemson game was a blowout. I think maybe Alabama does get in and they don't get in. Do you see that being a problem in the future, or do you think ultimately you will be rewarded for getting to that game?
Well, I think there's two pieces of it. One, I think that people are underestimating just how valuable it's going to be to get a first-round bye when you talk about teams having to win 3 or 4 games to win the national championship. And I think that that's going to become a little more clear as the season goes along. The other piece, too, is, yes, you look at the teams that lost their conference championship games, nobody moved from in to out based on that game. And I think that's the correct decision. Again, I'm not saying that you don't count that 13th game for SMU, but you do count the fact that they were 11-1 through 12 games, whereas Alabama was 9-3 through 12 games. Like, I do think that sort of thing matters. And look, I think the other piece of this, too, is you're seeing the SEC right now work on a message of, well, if strength of schedule was rewarded, we'd be in the field. And if we're not getting in the field, we're going to compensate by not scheduling hard non-conference games. Well, I mean, if you look at the teams that just got left out in Alabama and Ole Miss, they're teams that did not play strong non-conferences. Like, you look at Alabama, they played a 5-7 Wisconsin team and then a bunch of nobodies. When you look at Ole Miss, their hard non-conference game was against Wake Forest, which went 4-8. So, like, this isn't a real discussion. The hard part about their schedules is that they're playing other SEC teams. So there really isn't, like, a level of power that they actually have in this. And the reality is, again, like, I think that when you look at the precedents that the committee wanted to set, conference championship games were clearly valued. And I think that also strength of schedule was clearly valued.
Yeah, and I think that's the way that it should be. He's a CBS national college football writer. He is Shahan Jayaraja. Did I get it?
You got it.
See, baby steps. Baby steps. Have you ever seen the movie What About Bob with Bill Murray?
I have not.
All right, you got to add that to your list. It's called What About Bob with Bill Murray. It's hilarious. It's fantastic. Next time I interview, I hope you have seen it by then, but he reads a book called Baby Steps, and it's all about just taking baby steps. So that's what I did right there, nailing your name right there. Follow him at his name on Twitter. Thank you so much for your time, Sean.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. Good stuff out of him. I like that guy. Add him to the list. Because I think he did a very good job of breaking down exactly, because it can be complicated. Look, unless you're an avid college football fan, all the factors that go into who get in and who do not is really complicated. Strength of schedule is a big one. You get rewarded for that. How many losses? When do you lose? Do you lose early, lose late? Oh, there's all these different things that they talk about. There's like 12 people that sit in a room and go over it. And then I don't know how they vote, I'm assuming. Majority wins? Who knows? But I think he did a good job of breaking it down.
I honestly wonder what they actually do. Vote.
You think they just sit there and just throw darts at a dartboard and that's how they choose?
You're out of here, and you're out of here.
Yeah, we don't know. We have no idea.
No, we don't.
But Shahan did a good job of breaking it down. All right, coming up at the bottom of the hour, time to go around the NFL. Just saw Aaron Rodgers on with Pat McAfee. And why are the Eagles having trouble when they are in line to get the 1 seed? There is some quarterback, wide receiver drama, which is not rare in the NFL. We'll do that and much, much more. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. His guy Zakariah filling in right here, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the program. Final segment of the second hour. Show is flying by. The Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will revisit the topic that we've been talking about pretty much all day, but I haven't given any updates to the polls. I haven't read any of the texts, which you can participate on. I'll give you the question first. With an upheaval, is what I'll call it, Z-Rob, an upheaval of the offense. New offensive coordinator coming in, and a lot of new players are going to be coming in to fit that scheme, and the offense is going to look drastically different, hopefully for the good. So I just thought to myself, with a fan base and an organization that has prided themselves on defense, running the ball, use clock, win the clock battle, the possession of time of possession, I should say. It's going to look a lot different. So I just wondered, for the fan base out there, which do you prefer? Do you want all the fireworks, the glitz and the glamour, touchdowns left and right, and the defense suffers a little bit because of it? So do you prefer a shootout, or do you prefer how you've been winning over the past decade plus? Well, not the last couple of years, but, over the past decade plus. Do you prefer the gritty? Do you take pride in the fact that when people think Utah football, they think tough? They think that you're going to go into a battle. You're going to get banged up, hard hits, run the ball, run the clock down, get stops. As we saw in the last game over there across the country, so ridiculous that teams in California and Utah are going all the way to Florida and North Carolina. I'm never going to get used to that. Like, Cal played North Carolina. I was like, huh? What? Doesn't make any sense, because we're all used to the Pac-12.
Well, and the other thing, too, that doesn't make sense, me and OC touched on this a little bit, too, during rivalry week. USC going all the way to Notre Dame, or Notre Dame going all the way to USC. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. But, my point is, in that last game, 2 pick sixes for Utah, and that's, what you come to expect. The streak stayed alive this year. So, again.
21 straight seasons.
Say again?
I think it's 21 straight seasons.
Yeah, 21. The streak can legally drink. That's how long the streak is. That's how old the streak is. But Again, go ahead. Again, you can vote on that at ESPN 700. I'm at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. It's very simple. Do you prefer winning a shootout or a defensive battle? A or B? So we'll update that, and also I'll read off some text. There was a couple from yesterday that I didn't get to, so I'll read from the Dish Pros text line, 877-353-0700. But right now, and we're going to have a long segment here, so I'm going to do a little NFL, and then we're going to do fun in the 40s. The NFL, going around the NFL, and the rankings came out. A lot of people have the Lions at number 1. That's what's going to happen when you only have one loss on your schedule thus far. And that was a funky loss too. I believe it was to the Bucs, and it was in Detroit. Bucs aren't a bad team, but the Lions should be a lot better. But that's their lone blemish. And look, they look tough. They've lost guys. They've brought some guys. They've tried to replace them. Obviously, what did he go? Hutch, the kid out of Michigan, the Hutchinson. I think he might have went 2. Anyways, they lost him for the year. He might be able to return for the playoffs, but a lot of people have the Lions at number 1. I have no problem with that. But I did find this to be very interesting. The Eagles, who are in line to be the number 1 seed, now they're going to need some help from the Lions, obviously, but they're winning games at a high clip. So you would think that all would be good. But the reports coming out, they're 11-2, by the way. The Lions are 12-1. But 11-2, you would think that team would not have a lot of drama, right? Usually all the drama comes out when there's losing surrounding it. But the gist that I got is that the beef is between star quarterback Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. And essentially, from what I heard, it has nothing to do with what's on the field. Oftentimes when quarterbacks and wide receivers have, beef, it's because of something that happened on the field. The wide receiver mainly doesn't think he's getting the ball enough. That's why they call wide receivers divas. But this is apparently a off-the-field thing. And teammates are coming out and saying that essentially Hurts is trying to fix the problem, and A.J. Brown is not. And so I don't know what's going to come out or if it ever will, but that's just odd to me. You don't often see winning teams, an 11-2 team, you don't often see them with this beef. It comes with losing. Losing causes frustration, causes arguments, causes fights. That makes sense. An 11-2 team, that makes no sense to me. So I thought that was odd. And then the Aaron Rodgers, I touched on this a little bit actually in the crosstalk with Spence, but what do you do if you're the New York Jets? You're going to bring in a new head coach because the interim coach is not cutting it. And you already fired Robert Saleh, former defensive coordinator for the 49ers. But what do you do with Aaron Rodgers? He said that he's playing next year. And he said if the Jets want him, then he'll play for the Jets. But if you're the Jets, do you want him? If you looked at last week, you would say, yeah, I want him back. Remember, this is a 41-year-old that is coming off a torn Achilles. So I didn't expect him to look like the Aaron Rodgers of old right away, and he struggled a lot. But last week against the Dolphins, in which they put up 26 points, he went 27 of 39 for 339 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. He took 3 sacks, quarterback rating of a $104.5. I'd bring him back. You got Devontae Adams. You got a lot of good young pieces on that squad. I would bring him back.
I would too. Although, you're out of playoff contention,
Yeah.
You're eliminated. So you just kind of got to look forward to the draft, free agency, look at what you guys need for the draft. This is a pretty heavy draft class for quarterback, receivers, running backs, everything, So defensive-wise, too, it's pretty heavy. But, so Buffalo and clinched the division. Miami still has not clinched anything, but Jets and Patriots are out for playoffs, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati, still nothing. Cleveland's out. Houston, Indiana, nothing. But Jacksonville and Tennessee are out. I would say so. They've been having a pretty bad year. Chiefs clinched. Chargers and Broncos. My Broncos are still in it. They're still in it. Nothing yet. Vegas is eliminated from the playoffs. And then, like you said, Philly is clinched. Washington, Dallas, nothing yet. Giants eliminated. And then Detroit clinched, and all the other. I would say if Chicago loses this week, I think they're out. What would you say? Yeah?
Yeah.
But Minnesota will probably clinch. Green Bay maybe clinch. And then everything else is kind of blank for the South and the West and of the NFC. So
yeah, the way I look at it is if I'm the Jets, I'm definitely drafting a quarterback. Basically, you want to lose as many games as possible, which they've done a ton of. Mm-hmm. They're 3-10. But lose as many games as possible, get the highest pick the quarterback that you like the most that's available, and then have him learn under Aaron Rodgers for a year or two more. He's not going to play 5 more years. So have him groom and come back. And again, to me, that game was perfect for them. And me as a Dolphins fan, I wanted them to lose because I want a higher draft pick because even if we sneak in, we're 6-7. Even if we sneak in, we're going to lose in the first round like we did last year to Kansas City.
Wasn't it a really cold game too, where you took out a bottle of water out of the fridge and it just instantly froze?
Oh yeah, it was
so chilly.
It was first of all, the Dolphins' record and specifically Tua when the temperature is below 40 is horrible. It's even worse when it's below 30, which is why the Dolphins need to get the 1 seed so they can have all their games in Florida. I understand why if you play all your games in Florida and then all of a sudden you're playing in freezing Kansas City, why you wouldn't perform as well. But back to Aaron Rodgers, I keep him. The problem is there was so much drama. People think, he brought in not only players but coaches. He had his fingerprints on everything, and it all went horribly. Last year, obviously, he didn't play because of the torn Achilles, and then this year, they got blown out on the road against the Niners. I believe that was a Monday night game. Then they beat the Titans and the Patriots. They were 2-1, and things were looking up. Then they lost to the Broncos 10-9, lost to the Vikings 23-17, lost to the Bills 23-20, lost to the Steelers 37-15, lost to the Patriots 25-22, beat the Texans 21-13, lost to the Cardinals, lost to the Colts, lost to the Seahawks, lost to the Dolphins. So it hasn't been going well, so I understand why the fans and maybe the organization want to move on from Rodgers, because there have been games where he's looked old. He hasn't looked mobile, which has been part of his skill set, which has made him so great. And so I can see why you would want to move on for him. But you see games like last week, and I would keep him. But, especially in New York, everything is blown out of proportion. Number one media market in the United States. 2 football teams, 2 baseball teams, 2 basketball teams. And in New York, fans are crazy. They go crazy when stuff like this happens. So I could see why they would move on. But again, my game plan would be draft a quarterback, let Rodgers play another year, maybe 2, and then bring in the new guy and move on from there. But we'll see what happens. I find it interesting. And of course, Rodgers puts himself out there. He did the ayahuasca, which is, I don't know, some drug where you're in the dark by yourself and I don't know, all your insides come out, whatever. And then he missed a mandatory mini camp because he wanted to go to Egypt. And then he doesn't do himself any favors. I don't think he really cares. I can't tell whether or not he wants to be in the spotlight or not. But he doesn't do himself any favors going on Pat McAfee every Tuesday.
Yeah, or every day. Because I think he was on it yesterday, too, I think.
Was he?
I think so.
I thought it was every Tuesday.
Maybe.
Well, yeah.
I don't pay attention to that. But
Yeah.
Pat McAfee's great, too, but I don't pay attention to his show. But
I can't watch the whole interview, but I'll just look for the highlights. He always says something. He's a conspiracy theorist guy. They were talking about if RFK ran, that he was going to possibly be the vice president nominee. He's a very interesting guy. Look, I went to school with him at Cal, and I appreciate people that are different. But when you're in New York, and specifically when you're losing in New York, it's not always the best look.
Yeah, and I would think that you would probably say, sorry guys, we're really bad, having a bad season, not really bad, but having a bad season, and I needed to focus up and get my head straight. And I would say that's what I would do if I was in this position. If I was a professional quarterback playing in the NFL, and you're not having the best season ever.
Yeah,
I would say, yeah, taking a break from this, don't pay me. It's fine. I gotta focus up.
No, you would never say don't pay me. And you'd be a broadcaster's nightmare if you just gave cookie cutter answers all the time. I appreciate him being out of the box, but I would look, it's cute when you're winning, but I would definitely tone it down when you're losing. Anyways, that's a little bit around the NFL. Again, look up that story on Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, because it just doesn't make sense and there's no answers to it. But a wise man once told me, any fights that happen in sports, it's usually because of 2 reasons. Somebody owes somebody money, or there is a love triangle of sorts. It has something to do with a woman. Either money or women are 95% of the fights.
Good Lord.
Is what a wise guy told me. And I'm not that, look, that's reckless speculation. I'm just telling you what somebody else told me. And usually that person's right. Remember when Gilbert Arenas brought an AK-47 into the Wizards locker room?
Yep.
That was over money owed, because a lot of these guys gamble on the plane.
They do.
They're flying across the country. They gamble on their private plane. And sometimes guys that are not making $20 million a year lose more money than they can afford to lose. And so that's what that was over. Guy literally brought an assault rifle, and I think he put it in the other guy. Gilbert put it in the other guy's locker room, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's kind of a veiled threat, I suppose, or not really that veiled.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is the A.J. Brown thing is a similar situation that happened at Tennessee, because I know there was issues between him and Tannehill when he was still there or something. I don't remember what it was, but
yeah.
I think it was a similar.
Oh yeah, A.J. Brown definitely is a volatile wide receiver, but I think the stuff that happened in Tennessee is only dissimilar because that was over stuff that was on the field. I don't think that was off the field stuff. All right, let's move on to a little fun in the 40s. I guess we're going to call it fun in the 50s. We could do either. It's usually in the 50s. Maybe I got to switch up that name, Z-Rob. But last night, the NFL's always trying to do something new. Go to Brazil, go to Germany, they're always in England. but they're always trying something new. And like I said earlier, they have all these different broadcasts. You got the Manning cast where it's Eli and Peyton watching the game, just shooting the breeze. And then you have the regular, broadcast. And then last night, they did this with Toy Story. I remember watching a little bit of that. That was cool. But then last night, you had a Simpsons-themed broadcast where essentially they had all the different characters, not all the time. And I was talking with the PD, James, earlier, and he was saying that all the people's skin should be yellow because that's what the Simpsons color is. They weren't all that. And they only did it with, they did it sporadically. Like Bart would be the quarterback. Homer would be the quarterback. You'd have Lisa, running a route, catching touchdowns, stuff like that. But
can't forget Spider Pig.
Yeah, here's a little bit with and cut this off, James. I forgot to tell you where to cut it off. I think it's at 30 seconds. Just play it after the first joke or end it after Eli says, "Come on, Homer, you can't do that." But here's Homer Simpson. Look, they even crossbreeded the Mannings broadcast with the Simpsons broadcast. Here's Homer on with the Mannings.
We have a special guest today on the Manning cast.
You all know him as America's favorite nuclear employee and donut-loving dad, Homer Simpson.
I'm thrilled to be here. I've been a big fan of this show ever since someone explained to me what it was 5 minutes ago. Can you guys sign this football? Come on.
Homer, we know you're a big football fan. Who's your team?
I kind of wait to see which team is winning the most, then act like I've always been a diehard fan. Go, favorites!
Homer, that's terrible.
All right, Homer, you've racked up a lot of highlights over the years.
There you go.
So, what we thought we'd do here today is take a look at you in action and weigh in with our expert analysis.
Said, that's horrible, Homer. But anyways, yeah, so that was a little bit from last night. I thought it was pretty good. They had Stephen A. Smith as a Simpson character. They had Peyton and Eli as Simpson characters, but I thought this was pretty cool. Now, anytime you watch a broadcast, usually it's the big games, but they'll introduce the offense and the defense, right? So it'll be Alex Smith, Utah University, something like that, for the quarterback. And then they'll go through all the positions and they show the picture of the guy saying his name and what school he went to. So here are the Simpsons introductions.
Homer Simpson, Sector 17 Nuclear Power Plant.
Mo Sislak, Shelbyville Dog Training Academy.
Bart Simpson, University of South Melbourne, also known as You Smell.
Hi, Lisa Simpson, Harvard class of 28, then probably Yale class of 30. I think it's important to mix it up a little.
Nelson Muntz, Springfield Elementary Detention.
Herschel Christofsky, Clown College, also known as ASU.
Ooh, shots fired.
I'm Ralph!
So you had a little Krusty the Clown in there. You had Mo. So anyways, they had fun with it. Look, I think it's cool. A lot of people hated on it. I don't know why. It's just fun. And it's, my guess is it's a way to get, parents who are watching the game instead of just, because when you're young, you can't really pay attention. You don't really know what's going on. So it's probably an easy way for a dad or mom to watch the game with their kids. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then let's get to this. I thought that this was kind of sweet. Justin Jefferson played the majority of his early career with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins signed with the Falcons. He's been struggling, but Jefferson obviously signed a big deal with the Vikings, so he's still there. The Vikings and the Falcons the Vikings and the Falcons played on Sunday, and here's a mic'd up greeting, Jefferson to Kirk.
Good job, my boy. Yeah. Great to see you, my guy. Keep doing your stuff.
Thank you for what you meant to me.
Always, same, dog. Much love.
I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, he was the quarterback when Jettas got drafted in 2021.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, it's a lot because that's what Kirk Cousins helped Justin Jefferson take his career off.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Justin Jefferson helped Kirk Cousins get that deal in Atlanta.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's easy to look good playing the quarterback position when you have a star wide receiver like that. All right, finally, we're going to end on a funny note. This is up there with Herm Edwards. Hello, you play to win the game. Hello. So this is up there with that. What else is there? Mike Singletary, I want winners. We had Dennis Green. They were who we thought they were. And we let him off the hook. What else? Marshawn Lynch, I'm just here so I won't get fined. Allen Iverson, practice. This is up there. This is head coach of the Sacramento Kings, Mike Brown, postgame.
We just need to be methodical by stacking or playing the right way, possession after possession, 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 after possession. You guys got what I'm saying, right?
I counted either 26 or 21. I think it was 26.
I think it was 26 too. I lost count.
Yeah, that was not edited, by the way. He literally did that with all the press sitting there watching him just say it over and over and over again. I think he probably could have stopped at 2 or 3. But, yeah, I think the point was made. So, anyways, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, they did. I mean, this was they beat the Jazz pretty handily. Like 141-97.
Yeah.
After possession, after possession, after possession. Yeah. Maybe that's what he's referencing to, all the possessions in 26 times.
Yeah, I think if I was ever a head coach or a player, I would, well, head coach more, I would probably lose my mind too, constantly having to answer questions, the same stuff, especially when you're frustrated after a loss. I could see myself being a soundbite for sure, Z-Rob. I'd probably say some outlandish things. All right, coming up, final hour of the show. We will revisit the poll question, updated. I haven't even seen it yet, so I'm going to see it for the first time myself to see how you people feel about what you want your Utah team to look like. The identity that they've had, defense, run the ball, not a high-octane offense, or touchdowns galore. So the question is, do you prefer winning in a shootout or a defensive battle? 2 choices, simple question. We'll see if the poll results are simple as well. At Zach Sports on Twitter, ZAK Sports. The station's at ESPN 700, and I'll read some stuff from the text line, 877-353-0700. We will do that and much, much more with a packed last hour on the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Yes, sir. Welcome back to the program. 2 hours in the books. One more to go. All leading you up to Spence Checketts and the drive at 2 p.m. I don't think I'm going to be able to have the pleasure of doing crosstalk with him. Spence is on remote. But we'll be doing that throughout the 2 weeks. I told him I could have done like a half an hour of crosstalk with him. He had a pretty good line yesterday. I'm not going to repeat it, but it was good. You can go back and listen to that on the ESPN 700 app that I've been encouraging people to use. Fantastic app. And there's also a feature on there. I'm just going to pull it up right now. By the way, it's the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. And let's see. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, OC's other guy. I'm his guy, but he's got another guy, Jeff Schwartz. We will talk to him at the bottom of the hour, go around the NFL, and maybe I'll ask him, what's going on with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown? What's going on there? And who has he been surprised by? Who has he been disappointed by? All things NFL with Jeff at the bottom of the hour. But right now, as I go to my ESPN 700 app so I can tell you about that feature that I think is so cool. Oh, there's OC and Spence. See, they pull right up when you pull up the app. The question of the day that we've been asking. Oh, here it is. It's the open mic feature. So if you pull up your ESPN 700 app, right at the bottom to the left of the play button is the open mic button, and it says get on air with ESPN 700. Tap the mic below to share feedback, comments, and opinions. Be sure to say your name and where you're from, too. And then, boom, you just hit tap to start recording. You can voice off, tell me how bad I am or tell me how good I am, or you disagree with one of my opinions or you agree with one of my opinions. And then I'm guessing it gets logged in somewhere. That's where Z-Rob comes in, helps me out. And then we play it over the air. So you can do that along with calling in and texting in 877-353-0700. And where I've been asking people to vote on the poll, you can call in or text in on that number, by the way, 877-353-0700. And I've been asking people throughout the day, do you prefer winning in a shootout or in a battle? So the station tweeted it out. I retweeted it at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. And so far, 72% say shootout. 28% say defensive battle. That's a little higher than I thought, Z-Rob. I don't know what you expected. I do know that the fans are becoming disgruntled. And as we said, the defense has not been the issue. No. So maybe the tide is sort of turning because, look, when you have that much success being hard-nosed, playing defense, and not having a high-octane offense, that becomes part of your DNA. That becomes part of your identity. But it looks like after this last year, C-Rob, that people are kind of fed up. 72-28. Are you surprised by that?
Not at all. Not at all. You know, we've seen our defensive battles for sure. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we saw more defensive battle in the really bad Super Bowl with the Rams and the Patriots. But I think it's entertainment, too, for fans, players, having a good game. You know, like betting's been a big thing now. It's just like they want to meet agendas in their bets, and they're not meeting them, and that's why they want it to be a shootout or they want it to be a blowout, whatever you want to call it. But I think this kind of started right after Super Bowl 50 when the Broncos defense just completely carried the offense.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, Peyton Manning was essentially
he was basically shut down, didn't throw a touchdown, nada.
Yeah, it was funny. I forget who the defense. It might have been Von Miller.
It was Von Miller.
Yeah, he said they all knew he was done. I mean, he could barely throw. Yeah. After all those, neck surgeries, shoulder surgeries, all that stuff. But
he had plantar fasciitis too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he could barely move. He was a stat. He was a stat. I mean, he never was that nimble in the pocket, but he really couldn't move at that point. But Von Miller said, and I'm paraphrasing here, so this is not a quote, but he basically said that he went to Peyton and said, "Look, man, we need you out there. Like, I don't care if you are a complete shell of yourself. We just need you. We need Peyton Manning on the field, and we'll handle it ourselves defensively," which is essentially what happened.
We need the sheriff out there.
Yeah.
That was his nickname.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyways, that's pretty lopsided. But, it's time for a change. And believe me, you are going to get it. Jason Beck coming in, he's going to completely change the offensive system, and the personnel is going to be totally different. Utah's got to be up there with the amount of players that are in the transfer portal. They've got to lead it in quarterbacks. I don't think any other team has 3 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. So they definitely lead it there. But it's going to look a lot different, and this is the reason why. Here are some stats for you. They ranked 129th out of 134 FBS teams with a 49.7 grade from Pro Football Focus. Z-Rob, I don't know if you're a Pro Football Focus guy. I like it. I would say I don't swear by it, but I would say I like it more than I dislike it. I like using it, though. I think that, they work really hard to come up with their formulas and their grades. They put a lot into it. They don't just go off of, was it an interception or a touchdown? They go, was it a ball that got tipped, or was it an amazing catch but a badly thrown ball? They factor a lot of things into it. Again, some of it you can get lost in the weeds, so I don't completely swear by it, but I do look at it and use it as a tool.
Yeah, I think PFF's a good way to look at it too, like grades and grading wise and stuff. And I can usually tell like I played high school football, and I could tell like, oh, that ball's overthrown, oh, that ball's underthrown, because I played receiver, and I'm like, groovy, or that was a bad throw.
Yeah, because just the raw stats, again, there can be examples of a guy throws a perfect pass, but it bounces off the wide receiver's hands, and the DB intercepts it.
Exactly.
That should be graded differently than a guy that completely throws a duck and it gets picked off by the linebacker or something.
Yeah,
there's touchdown, a ton of time doing that. And I don't know about you, but 129th out of 134 is not good. Okay? Only 5 teams worse than you, not good. Points per game. They scored 23.6 points per game. There are 16 teams in the Big 12. Z-Rob, they ranked 14th. That's not good. Yards per game. They passed for 199.4 yards per game. That ranked 15th out of 16th in the Big 12. And they rushed for 130, a little bit better, ranking 12th in the Big 12 out of 16th. And then red zone scoring percentage, they were 88th in the country at 81.82%. And touchdown rate, they ranked 106th in the country at 50%. So, look, Coach Witt is definitely going to go down as the greatest football coach in Utah history. They're going to either have a statue or name the field after him. I know he said he doesn't want either. But Pac-12 championships, Rose Bowls, a Sugar Bowl win, unbeaten seasons, got to number 2 and 4. But it's been mainly about defense and not offense. And last year got by, had a decent season, but this year was just ugly. So you knew there were going to be some changes. And I tip my cap, because a lot of coaches are stubborn. They go by one thing and one thing only, and they don't want to change it. But for Kyle to be willing to part ways with Coach Ludd, I don't know exactly how that went down, whether or not he was just like, I'm not the best offensive coordinator for this program anymore. But Winningham could have brought in an offensive coordinator that ran a similar scheme. But he didn't.
I agree.
He's changing it. And, I mean, how often do you see that? I mean, the best coaches evolve. Like, yes, your system was successful at a certain time, but the game has changed. Or specifically, maybe your personnel changes, and the best coaches change along with it. They don't try to put a square peg through a round hole.
Right, and I think it was smart making Jakin the play caller for the rest of the year, because he's been in Ludwig's staff for a few years now, and he knows the playbook.
Yeah.
So Ludwig, Ludwig knew he was going to leave, right? He would trust Bajakin to call plays because he's been in the system for a while, and he's the quarterback's coach. He knows the best way to utilize his quarterbacks, And I get like Andy Ludwig liked Isaac Wilson as a starter, and then Bajakin liked Brandon Rose as a starter. So it offsets for sure, but I think Bajakin was the right call for the rest of the season. Do I think the play calling was iffy? A little bit, but it's a new era. It's a nice little reset for Utah football. Just get minds right, get all the players you need signed.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep. And look, I said this yesterday, but any Ute fans out there, that are freaking out about 3 quarterbacks being in the portal, they're going to be bringing guys in. Mainly, they're looking at New Mexico quarterback Devin Dampierre, who's in the portal and obviously is very familiar with Jason Beck. And also, I was looking at some of the recruits that Utah has brought in, and one of them is Jamarian Ficklin, and he's a very intriguing prospect for the Utes. And notice what I'm going to say here. Listen to my words carefully. The dual threat lefty, dual threat, which means pass and run, has been one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the state of Oklahoma. He rushed for more than 1,800 yards and 40 touchdowns in his high school career, while also passing for more than 10,000 and 118 touchdowns against only 34 interceptions.
Good Lord, he's stacking up his stats.
Yeah, for sure. But the key part there is the 1,800 rushing yards and the 40 rushing touchdowns, because that's what you're going to see. Now, Cam liked to extend plays, and I always say, and this is my frustration, I'm going to constantly bring up the Dolphins, so you're going to have to forgive me, but it's always going to be within context and it's going to make sense. But my frustration with Tua is he throws one of the most beautiful balls you will see in the NFL. And he can read coverages and make a decision, go through his progressions fantastically. But what he can't do, and what frustrates so many non-Chief fans, is he can't do what Patrick Mahomes does, which is the pocket breaks down or somebody's not open and he can move around. He can move up in the pocket. He can move around the pocket. He can pretend like he's throwing, and then he runs. He can pretend like he's running, and then he throws. Tua can't do that. He folds like a beach chair.
Yeah.
As soon as there's pressure, and he just ducks down. And obviously he's had struggles with concussions and stuff like that. But if you can get a quarterback that can extend plays, then you're cooking with gas.
Exactly. And you could say the same thing with like all other quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson either runs it or throws it, you know? Yep. Bo Nix runs it, throws it. I mean, we've seen Bo Nix do a little bit like, oh, I'm going to run it. No, pass. You know, we've seen that, but this year a little bit. But Josh Allen, same thing, runner pass, you know. And congrats to Josh Allen, by the way, just got engaged. But, yeah, it's like we see this kind of play style everywhere else except for the Chiefs, where Mahomes is like, oh, yeah, I'm going to fake run it and then throw it. Or I'm going to fake throw it and then run.
I love the random shout out to congratulations to Josh Allen for getting engaged. I saw he did a press conference and they said, how was your weekend? And he said, it was a nice weekend. Or how was your bye week? I think
it was bye week. It was bye week.
How was your bye week? And he didn't mention anything about it. But obviously it's all over IG and all that good stuff. But look, I think Lamar Jackson is a unicorn, sort of like Mike Vick was a unicorn. I'm not expecting Utah to bring in a quarterback that can run and throw like Vick did and Lamar does. I don't expect that. But even Aaron Rodgers, who's not the fastest quarterback in the world, in his heyday, he would run a little bit, which keeps the defense on their toes. If an opposing defense is going up against a guy that can't extend a play, it's a lot easier for them to game plan because they know once the pocket breaks down, the play's over, either in a sack or an incompletion. But Patrick Mahomes specifically is the number one guy that you want to look at. He's not going to have 100 yards rushing like Lamar Jackson. Maybe it's only 10, 15, 20. But when he does it, it's usually 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11. But he extends the play, and that's the other thing. If I'm playing against the Chiefs and I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm telling all my guys, do not fall for the pump fake. I mean, it's a lot easier when you're just watching on TV, but there are times where there's no way he's going to throw it or there's no way that he's going to run it. And specifically, he pump fakes, and guys will leave, namely Travis Kelce, and it ends up being a first down.
Yeah, or it's Xavier Worthy or Isaiah Pacheco. I'm also thinking about back in like 2018, 2019, 2020. Or 2017. When Tyler Huntley was extending those plays.
Yep.
You know, it was like we could possibly see like another Tyler Huntley type player coming into this program. You know?
Yep.
And we've seen him do it in Baltimore too when he was on Baltimore.
Yep.
So I think there's a chance that dual threat quarterback will be come in handy. And then I know they signed also Wyatt Becker, 4-star, I think, 5-star. It's a 4-star. But So we'll see how that plays out. But
yeah,
I think they're going to both need a year and a half to develop at least.
Yeah. And again, when you see the descriptions of these recruits or whoever they get from the portal, you're going to see terms like dual threat. But the key to being a dual threat quarterback, because Patrick Mahomes is hardly injured. I was looking at his stats the other day. I forget, because I think the Chiefs have had 10 straight years of winning 10 games or more. Yep. And I was looking up how many of those were Alex Smith and how many were Patrick Mahomes. Anyways, you look at his career stats, and it's like 14 games, 15 games, 16 games, 17 games now. He doesn't get hurt. And unfortunately for Cam, because Cam is one of the biggest competitors I've seen in college football. He's not down to just throw the ball away and take an incompletion or take a sack. So he would extend plays and he would run sometimes, but unfortunately, that coincided with a lot of his injuries. So the key part to being a dual threat is being able to run and extend plays, but not get hurt.
Right. And Mahomes has been injured, but he just plays on it. High ankle sprains.
That's true too. He's got a very high pain threshold. He was all kinds of beat up. I think in both Super Bowls. I know specifically one of them, he was like barely running around. But yeah, found a way to get it done.
One with the Eagles, and then last year I think he was a little banged up too.
Yeah. So we'll see. But this guy, Jamarian Ficklin, they're saying that he's one of the biggest attributes about the guy is that he's a winner. And look, you can say whatever you want about Patty Mahomes. You cannot say that he's not a winner. All right, keep them coming. I didn't get to the text line. I swear I will. I guess since we don't have crosstalk, I'll read from the text line and some tweets that I've gotten. We will do that. You can keep them coming. 877-353-0700. You can call or text in there. 877-353-0700. Also, hit up the station at ESPN 700, and you can hit me up. I'm at Zach Sports. ZAK Sports. Coming up, bottom of the hour, NFL talk with Jeff Schwartz. We'll see, I think OC, if he had to do the power rankings of his weekly guests, I think Jeff would be one. I would be two. He did a show for a long time with Jeff, so I understand that. So we'll call him, we'll call Jeff OC's main guy. He's coming up next. You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here, ESPN 700. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. It is Zakariah filling in for Sean O'Connell here on ESPN 700. Coming up at about 1:45, we'll have some topical trivia for you. Do you like Keith Urban? Does your significant other like Keith Urban? Your friends, your family, whoever? We're giving away 2 tickets to see Keith Urban in concert, but you got to be able to answer some topical trivia. We'll do that at 1:45. But right now, it is a pleasure to be joined by Jeff Schwartz. You can follow him on Twitter at that name, GEOFFSCHWARTZ. Give him a follow on Twitter for all of his football insight. Jeff, how are you today?
Good. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for jumping on. I'm filling in here for your buddy who's living the life on a 2-week vacation.
Like, is this a PFL thing or like just on vacation?
No. This was before he got hired back here at ESPN 700. He had already had a pre-planned 2-week cruise, I believe. So this is not. I think it's a combo. I think he might be doing PFL, and then I think he had some PFL work, and then he's doing the cruise. But anyways,
Must be nice.
Yeah, it must be nice. I'm holding down the fort for him, staying in his house too, Jeff, like Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone style.
Wow, I've been together with Sean like only 4 times in my life, and you've been there, and I love it, man. I'm gonna be in Utah though in a couple of weeks. I hope I see everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I don't think I'll be here, but definitely stop by the studio. All right, Jeff, let's talk some NFL. Usually when you see, fights, infighting between teams, it's usually surrounded around losing. In this instance, you have a 2-loss Philadelphia Eagles team, and from what I've heard, and a player came out and basically said that an off-the-field incident, I don't know what took place, but that Jalen Hurts is willing and open to talk about it, but A.J. Brown doesn't want to talk about it. When's the last time you can remember fighting on a winning team, Jeff?
Not often. This is not good. Remember, it wasn't public at the time, but last year we came to find out there was some, disagreements and, it wasn't kumbaya there in Philly. Now you openly talking about this. I wonder what happened. I wonder if it's a off-the-field issue, not an on-the-field issue. I wonder how much can be solved with A.J. Brown just catching 12 passes next weekend this weekend against Pittsburgh. And look, wide receiver is the only position in the NFL that relies on someone else for you to do a good job, right? A running back can have a bad offensive line and look really good still, right? I mean, you need the ball if you're a wide receiver. You have to have the ball, and your quarterback's got to throw you the ball. And if he don't throw you the ball, then you're not going to get your numbers. You're not going to look good. You're not going to get paid. Now, Brown's been paid all those things, but that's a component of this, right? Where Brown wants the ball and he's not getting it, and sometimes it becomes vocal to let everyone know that I'm not getting it. It's not my fault. I'm not playing well. It's the quarterback's fault. But you're really right, though. You don't see this often on teams that are winning at the level the Eagles are.
Have you been on teams before where guys didn't like each other, and it might not have necessarily leaked to the media, but you knew that 2 guys like really hated each other, but they were able to put that to the side when it came to actually playing on the field?
I don't remember a specific player 1, player 2 not liking each other, but you're not going to like everyone in the locker room, right? I'm sure you're not going to like everyone at your job, but you have to be professional, right, and make it work anyway. So I think that's part of life and part of working together is you put aside your differences for the greater good, and that happens in a football locker room, of course. And it seems here that maybe it's gone too much in Philly.
Yeah, it's just odd. Hopefully they can work that out because, look, they're having a great season. And I don't know what specifically happened. Well, you can tell me this. How many years did you play in the NFL?
8 years.
8 years in the NFL. Now, a wise man once told me that, and this is football, basketball, whatever, but when athletes fight, usually it's one of 2 things. Either somebody owes somebody money or there's something going on with a woman. Did you find that to be true in your time playing?
I mean, a lot of it can revolve back to money and women. I don't remember a woman being involved. We basically had those discussions. I've been married a while, and maybe the women issue wasn't something that teammates came to me about.
Yeah.
So it's certainly possible that was the case. But yeah, look, I mean, when the girlfriend and wife thing, obviously, the few instances where that does happen ends up making major news because it's a big story. But I think that's more lore than it is actual real issues in the locker rooms.
Okay, fair enough. Well, sticking with the drama theme here, Jeff, what would you do with Aaron Rodgers? It seems like there's more headline, obviously being 2-10, there's been more headlines about stuff that's off the field than on the field, but there's been so much made about him bringing in coaches, him bringing in players, despite the fact that all of, if you look at evidence, it's, it mounts up a little bit, but I still think he's got good football in him. I don't know if you watched any of the Jets-Dolphins game last week, but he looked the Jets, in my opinion, they're going to have a decently high draft pick. You draft a guy, and Aaron's not going to play 10 more years or even 5 more years. It's probably going to be 1 or 2 more years. So you draft a quarterback, have him learn under Aaron, and keep him around. But there's rumors out there that they might just want to be done with the whole Aaron Rodgers project.
Yeah, why would you? I guess why would you want to do this again? I mean, it's not working, and I think that if you look at the last 2 years, obviously I don't know how you roll this thing back, man. You are in a bad. I mean, I'm in agreement with you. I think that there's something left there, but what's the purpose of one more year? One more year of Aaron Rodgers. Like you say, when you think long term with some of these franchises, right? You think to yourself, like, are you taking a winning team and signing Rodgers for 1 year? Are you really winning a Super Bowl for that? If a coach trying to save his job, maybe they want to do that, but the front office has to agree with that. I mean, where are the landing spots for next season? Are the Saints like, we don't really like Derek Carr anymore, and we think we can win, so let's sign up Aaron Rodgers? I mean, where are the spots for him where that makes sense? A lot of these teams, I could argue that he would be up for, just go draft a quarterback, right? Like, you're not in a position to win now. So I think that's what's likely to happen. Maybe there's 1 or 2 teams that really feel like they're Aaron Rodgers away from something. But, when's the last time you won a playoff game? 6 years ago? Or like 5 years ago? You didn't play the Super Bowl in 15 years, right? I mean, right? So I don't know what the attraction is to Aaron Rodgers. And a lot of these teams don't like drama. The owners don't like drama. And whether Rodgers intends to or not, it just follows him. And I think a lot of owners and front offices, are just going to be off-put by that.
Talking football with Jeff Schwartz right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in, ESPN 700. Yeah, I know that they have the longest drought of making the playoffs, and I think winning a playoff game, I think you got to go all the way back to Mr. Butt Fumble, Mark Sanchez. And you make a good point. The teams, there's not a lot of teams that are a quarterback away. The teams that have poor quarterback play are not ready to win. So putting in Rodgers wouldn't make a ton of sense. Let's shift it over. Utah doesn't have an NFL team yet. Who knows? But there's a lot of Broncos fans out here, and I want to pick your brain on what you've seen out of Bo Nix. I think the oldest rookie quarterback out of Oregon, transferred a couple of times, and Sean Payton made it seem like he was his favorite quarterback in all the draft, in a draft that I think had at least 4 or 5 quarterbacks go before him, maybe 4. But what have you made so far of the Broncos, Bo Nix, and Sean Payton after that disastrous year last year with Russell Wilson?
Well, look, Sean Payton can still coach, right? I think we thought maybe he wasn't going to coach, but could coach, but obviously he can. And Bo Nix fits what Sean Payton wants in a quarterback. It didn't mean it was going to work per se, but it has. And you got to be impressed, man. Like, they are playing. Winning a championship this year? No, but they're playing good football. They're playing football where to me, this is the most important part of a rookie quarterback. Absolutely the most important part is when you end their rookie season, do you feel like you have a chance to win in the near future, right? Because you have the rookie contract and you want to maximize the cheapness of that quarterback. And I think that if you are a Broncos fan, and Broncos really more important than Broncos front office and coach, you think to yourself, okay, guys, he can do this for us. Look, do I think Bo Nix is good enough to beat Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game? I don't know, man. That feels unlikely, but he can get to the postseason every year with a good roster around him. And that to me is so important, man. Like, you end the season thinking that to yourself, and it opens up a lot of opportunities for you to build your roster in the offseason.
There's also a lot of 49ers fans listening, and they are one of the most intriguing teams in the NFL to me. Obviously, they've gotten bitten by the injury bug. CMC didn't start off the year. Then he came back. Now he's back on the IR. You lost Brandon Ayuk to a season-ending injury. Kittle's been in and out of the lineup. Debo's been in and out of the lineup. Even Brock Purdy missed the game. So they've had injuries a ton. Do you just point to that? This is a team that has gotten to the precipice of the mountaintop so many times. NFC Championship lost to the Eagles when Brock got hurt, and they didn't even have a quarterback that could throw. Then you had the NFC Championship game lost to the Rams, and then you had a Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs, and another Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs. I think Kyle Shanahan is a genius offensive mind, and I think that GM John Lynch has shown that he can put together a fantastic roster, but I feel like the patience, and I have a lot of Niner fan friends, I think patience is wearing thin. What do you think is ultimately going to happen in Santa Clara? And yes, I say Santa Clara because they're not in San Francisco. Sorry, I have to get that out as a Bay guy.
Very true. It's like an hour or two. It's not even close.
Yeah.
So I think that the Niners have a very top-heavy roster. Very top-heavy roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are a roster that's just – they have all these guys that have been paid. And when that happens, you have to fill – I think sort of the depth. There's some young folks I think about, moving forward are part of your future. But they just don't have a lot of right now. So when you get hurt, you're very screwed. Very screwed. And then, of course, you have to pay Purdy up here quite soon. And once you pay Brock Purdy, I think fans don't like to hear that, but it does feel that way.
Yeah, I know, and that's what makes them so intriguing to me, because I don't have any answers on paper. You think you have a great coach, like I said, a great GM. Purdy, big games. He's obviously your future at quarterback. You got two great wide receivers, a great tight end. The running back field is supposed to be great. So it feels like you should not blow it up, but it's getting to the point where there's just been so many seasons that they haven't won that I wouldn't be surprised if they did. All right, let's get out on a light note. I'm assuming you watched Monday Night Football last night. Are you yay or nay on the Simpsons, Toy Story, or didn't they do a Nickelodeon one? Are you yay and nay on those kind of broadcasts, or where are you at on that?
Yeah, I don't. The question I had last night was like this thing, like,
yeah,
who is that for? Like, millennials, I guess, for us. I haven't watched The Simpsons in years, but my kids don't watch The Simpsons. Like,
yeah.
I think the Nickelodeon watching Nickelodeon shows.
Yeah.
That made sense. Like, the Simpsons broadcast was. I saw some highlights of it. Who was that for? That's my question. Like, who was that for?
That it does beg that question, because I would like to know what the majority of the age group is of people that are watching The Simpsons. I mean, I certainly grew up on it, but I don't think, but I don't think my nieces and nephews are watching it. So I'm kind of with you.
My kids are not the age to watch Simpsons yet. I mean, they're 10 and 8. They're not there yet, and they have so many options for. I mean, they're downstairs right now watching like Netflix or something. Like, they have so many options for viewing that we didn't have as a kid, and so I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know who it's for.
Yeah. Well, they obviously are doing it for a reason, and maybe it'll come out. Maybe it did I don't know if they're trying to get younger kids to start watching The Simpsons, or maybe my theory was it's an excuse for a father or a mother that wants to watch Monday Night Football to be able to watch it with their kids, because just watching normal football probably wouldn't grab their attention totally. But who knows? All right, Jeff, it was a pleasure having you on. I know you usually do a full hour with OC. I'll be in all next week as well, so hopefully we'll have you for a full hour then. Appreciate your time.
All right, take care. Thank you for having me.
There you go. Jeff Schwartz. Follow him on Twitter at that name, 8-time NFL vet. He didn't back up my theory, Z-Rob, on the old it's either gambling over a woman theory.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'm not surprised, actually. Sorry.
He probably just stayed out of it. It probably is true. He just probably wasn't in the middle of all of it. All right. Coming up at next segment, final segment of the show, no crosstalk with Spence. He is on remote. We'll give you some details on that, and then I'm going to read some text messages, some from yesterday that I didn't get a chance to get to, and also we're doing topical trivia. We are giving away 2 tickets to Keith Urban, but only if you text in the right answer to our trivia question. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, and the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers invite you to help those at the road home this holiday season with, what's up? With needed blankets, coats, shoes, hats, and gloves. Drop off donations at any Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer. Visit ESPN700sports.com for dealer locations. Spread the warmth and help others find their way home. Topical trivia and some text messages coming up next on the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here, ESPN 700. Hey. Find us out on something smooth here on Tuesday. Also, like your ESPN 700. 2:00 at Advance. I'm sure he's packed show today. But that's all right. Top of right now. This gift was line here. Did Keith Urban win the CMA Male Vocalist of the Year? What year did Keith Urban win the CMA Male Vocalist of the Year? The first person to text or call in the right answer, 877-353-0700, will win tickets to go see him live and in concert. So go ahead, get your text on, and go see Keith. Sounds like fun. I've never seen him live and in concert. I'm trying to think of my favorite. I think my favorite concert ever, Stevie Wonder was pretty amazing. But when I was like 16 years old, I went and saw Al Green. It was amazing. I was up in the balcony, and he was asking where people were from. Or he was saying, I understand San Jose. I think it was in San Jose. San Jose's in the house. And then he was saying all these different cities. And then I said, hey, Al, Berkeley's in the house. And he went, and I understand Berkeley's in the house.
Berkeley?
Berkeley. You know, it's known for their hippies. Berkeley's pretty weird, so Berkeley kind of fits.
I'm going to Post Malone and Jelly Roll in April.
Going to where?
Post Malone and Jelly Roll.
Oh, nice.
Is that right, Eccles?
Yeah, we were giving tickets away for that.
Yeah, we were.
Oh,
so, yeah, like my girlfriend and I hopped on the train and got tickets, so we're going to go in April.
That's awesome.
My first concert, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, buying a ticket for it. Like, I was going to go to NF, who's a hip-hop artist, but I missed a chance. But, yeah, I'm excited.
Sounds like fun.
I know.
Also, if you love college basketball, specifically the Running Utes, they are hosting Radford on Saturday. For a chance to see that game in person, text Utes, U-T-E-S. Text Utes to 33986. And you can go see the Running Utes in person. We're just giving everything away. We're like Oprah out here.
Yeah, and
you get a car. You get a car. And also, Spence is on remote today. I will be on remote tomorrow. Join me, won't you? I'll be live at Rocky Mountain Chevy in Tooele. You can enter to win tickets to the Running Utes game this Saturday against Radford. Another opportunity to get some tickets. And we'll have a free pizza for everyone who stops by. So if you don't want to see me, at least come get some pizza. Or you can just come and yell at me, or you can come and, give me a hug. Maybe take a picture or something. But join me at Rocky Mountain Chevy in Tooele tomorrow. That's the Sean O'Connell Show, live at Rocky Mountain Chevy tomorrow in Tooele. Obviously, I'll be there earlier than 11, but at least from 11 to 2. My first remote in Utah. I'm just checking off boxes out here, Z Will.
Hey, you should come to my restaurant and eat some sushi.
Aha, yeah. The chef over here is pulling a double. All right, but I did want to get to the text line. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports, and you can text in on the Dish Pros text line, 877-353-0700. Let's see, where were we? I wanted to read some from yesterday. And there was some guy, here we go. Hey, Zakariah, this is from the 801. Hey, Zakariah, was OC able to get you a Grenadier? Not yet, but we are in negotiations. Obviously, I wasn't going to be able to drive that beautiful vehicle around for 2 full weeks, but I'm going to try to get it for a day or two. But yeah, not yet. I'm going to have, OC, I'm putting him to work on his vacation. I told him to write me a list of all the things that I need. I didn't get an access card, all the stuff in his house. I don't know where stuff is. And I told him to make me a list so that I didn't have to bother him. So now I don't feel bad that I've texted him on average probably 5 times a day. So I'll text him again and remind him about that. And then let's see. There was somebody who was a Dolphins fan that I wanted to read. Can't see it right now. Let's see. Somebody said, let's see, we need a better quarterback. Oh, maybe they texted in again today, so I can't find it. But let's see what we have today. Oh, somebody texted in Utes, trying to get some tickets. What else we got? From the 801, somebody texted in about the poll question. Do you like a defensive battle or do you like a shootout? Again, from the 801, a shootout because it's more exciting. And yes, that did lead the poll. I think a lot of people are starting to feel that way. And then we had our good friend Gordy on, and he wanted people to text in about records that people think could not be broken. This is a good one that Gordy didn't mention. He mentioned 3 good ones: the hitting streak, batting over 400, and Pete Rose, rest in peace. Hopefully they finally put him in the Hall. I think they should have done it while he was still alive. He is the hit king. So that's what Gordy's 3 baseball ones. But someone came up with another good one: Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak. That probably won't be broken either. That's a good nominee. By the way, if you're bored, look up, just type in Cal Ripken, Kevin Costner. There's a rumor that streak could have been broken, but the Orioles pulled some strings to have a game delayed or postponed due to lighting issues. The lights, they said that there was an issue with that. But there's another theory, and it involves Kevin Costner. So if you're bored, go ahead and Google that. All right, that'll do it for me. Spence Checketts coming up next. Stay tuned, 2 to 6. The Drive is coming up next. You've been listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. Zakariah filling in right here, ESPN 700.